Welcome to our Living Stones podcast, where we gather to discuss all matters of faith and life as members of God's household. In a world that often leaves us feeling fragmented and disconnected, our hope is that Living Stones will help to further connect us as we pursue the Lord together. I'm your host, Davina, and today I have our dear sister and fellow church member, Grace Kim, joining me to share her Grace story. Hi, Grace.
Hi.
A little background of Grace is that she is married to her husband, Charlie, who is also one of our worship leaders. She's a mother of 2 children, Aaron and Abigail. Oh my gosh, how old are they? 5 and 7.
5 and 7.
Aaron is 5.
Mm-hmm.
Abigail is 7.
Mm-hmm.
Whom she is also currently homeschooling. And Grace is a leader herself over the women's ministry at our church and over her own discipleship group. Grace has been a dear friend of mine for a long time, ever since our college days back at Virginia Commonwealth University.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so excited to have you here because your story is one of the most traumatic and yet like beautifully redemptive stories that I know. So
Yeah.
it's very bipolar up and down, but
Mm-hmm.
I love to hear about it. I ask you still to this day, oh, like, what did you do at this age? And I mean, most of the time you don't remember, but
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think your story is fascinating.
Yes. It is unique.
Yeah, it is.
Mm-hmm.
So to get started, before we go into your actual story,
Mm-hmm.
I would like to know, and maybe all the other church members who don't really know who you are would like to know,
Mm-hmm.
when did you start coming to our church?
Mm.
And why did you stay at our church?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that will answer like how long you've been attending.
Yeah. So we were in Richmond till 2017. So this was around when Abigail was 1, a little after she was born. Then due to some circumstances, we had to come back to Nova. And so that was 2017. So pretty much I started coming out to Cornerstone since 2017. Yeah.
It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. But I remember in the beginning, I was like, what is church? And I'll talk about it in my testimony, but I didn't really grow up in church. So I had to come to Cornerstone because that's where Charlie was going before we got married.
Right.
So I had to come. But, shortly after I realized why I wanted to be part of the church community. And it was hard in the beginning for sure because Abigail was so young. So
She was basically just born.
yeah. And so as I was taking care of her, I was coming out to church, but I wasn't really involved. And then shortly after that, Aaron was born.
Right.
So for years, even after I started coming out, I felt like I was part of the church, but not really part of the church.
Mm-hmm.
And so it wasn't until maybe Aaron was about 1 or 2 that I felt like, okay, I have the breathing room to get more plugged in. I wanted to serve more and things like that. So
Nice. Okay, so 2017, a lot happened. Well, because of your 2 babies. And then so it sounds like it's been a little more recent. Because Aaron's 5 right now. So the last few years, you've been feeling like this is your church.
yeah, for sure. There was a certain moment where I think I was like worshiping during one of the services. And I've always struggled with like, what is church and why do I have to come here every Sunday and what's the whole point of it all and everything like that. But I think that was when that whole kind of feeling of I'm worshiping, with my church in this congregation. And there was something so powerful about that. And so that along with many other things, I was like, okay, this is my church. And
Great.
yeah.
Tell us a little about where you were born
Mm-hmm.
and tell us about your parents and like your siblings and just the first maybe 10 years of your life.
10 years.
As
okay.
as
I
I know,
know.
it's a lot.
Yeah. Well, okay, I was born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. As so many of our church members they were from there. But so I was born in Philly. I grew up in a small town called Havertown, though, and I was well all I'm the first of four kids. So me and all my siblings, my parents, they came to America like a year before I was born. So sometime in the 80s. I won't. I mean, everyone knows how old I am, but whatever. In the 80s, they came, and then they did all sorts of jobs, like all of our parents did. The classic immigrant story of they just took whatever jobs they could. They had to do whatever they needed to for, to provide for these four children. And so they worked in all different kinds of jobs. They owned businesses, things like that. And then after 7 years of being there, we moved to Virginia.
Oh, okay. Maybe I forgot that
Yeah.
information, but yeah, I didn't know you were there for 7 years.
Yeah, well, 8 years. So like right after my youngest sibling, Sam, was born, we came to Virginia. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And so when we came here, I was 8. We moved to Annandale, where like all the other Koreans were.
Mm-hmm.
And so we lived there for a while. We lived in all different areas of Virginia. But I would definitely say my beginning years here were there. And then, and like that's the beginning of kind of what's shaped so much of my life and things like that. But for sure, it started. I don't remember much, but it started once we came to Virginia. Because my parents worked so much, I remember I was kind of being the oldest, had to kind of take on this responsibility of caretaker for my siblings at a very young age. I remember changing my brother's diapers, and I was 8.
Mm.
I was carrying him around, and I don't remember my parents being around much during that time.
They worked a lot. I
Yeah.
mean, it's the whole lock and key generation.
Yeah.
At the time, like, how did you see your parents? What kind of people were they? As whatever you could remember from like back then.
I think they were just at that time, like my mom, she was kind of the classic mom. She was always taking care of us. She was always in the kitchen, cooking, cleaning, all of those things. And then my dad was the disciplinarian. So when it came to things that we did wrong or right or anything in that realm, I remember he was the one that was there. He was the one teaching us, yelling at us, telling us these things. And so I think in my childhood, they were there, but I didn't really have a sense of like they're my parents, if that makes any sense. I never felt safe. Like I never felt like even if I did something wrong that it was okay, that I feel like that's classic parent too. Like or that's the security you find in having a parent, and I don't think I had that. Starting from a very young age.
Yeah. So, what is it about, I guess, your mom or your dad that kind of sets them apart from an average disciplinarian that would make you feel unsafe or made you feel unsafe at the time?
I mean, we know a lot of parents that, even personally for us, when it comes to discipline, there's a certain action taken. If you do something wrong as a child, then there is a consequence, whether it's timeout or you get something taken from you, or you get spanked, or something like that. I think the way my dad approached it was just maybe like 10 steps too far. And what started out as, hey, you did something wrong, then turned into kind of like a rage. It would turn into enragement. It would turn into a lot of conclusions, paranoia, even of things that we haven't even done wrong yet. And so in order to fix those wrongs, then he would have to take even more action against us. And so that's where I mentioned the verbal or like the physical abuse. Yeah, it was the intention may be, oh, hey, it's because I need you to know that this was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But somewhere along the way, the intention got lost
Mm.
and it got distorted. And as a child, it it never kind of was clear. Um,
Like what was actually wrong then?
because
Came
then,
to fear immediately.
right. And so another thing is at a very young age, I always say something that he did really well was that he instilled a certain kind of fear in us. And it was a kind of fear that is very effective for someone that wants to control his children. You will not talk back. You will not defy me. You will not, go against anything that I say, or it's going to get worse. Like, not only are you going to get in more trouble, but so are your siblings. It just made it worse for everybody. And so eventually, as a child, even as a child, you have to adapt, you have to survive. And so how we survived is we became silent. I think there was a certain way that he was able to really like kind of beat down on us, our spirits, our minds, our thoughts, everything, feelings, that eventually we just felt defeated. And so it was a lot of just, it's better if we just stay silent. It's better if we just don't fight back or say anything, because it's just easier that way.
Can you share like a couple examples of a memory? Again, let's see how much you can remember, but of something that was recurring that, let's say, you would do wrong in the eyes of your dad, and then what that process looked like.
I mean, even something as simple as getting a B on your report card. Yeah, like a very classic thing amongst Asians is B is bad.
Yeah.
And so it's unheard of. Like, you don't get B's, anything. But again, it's like, that was bad. You got a B when you should have gotten an A. That means that you are not studying, which means you're not being truthful when you said that you said you're studying. So you must be lying. And that will lead to him getting very angry, you know, putting his, like, hitting us, things like that. And then it wouldn't just stop there. But it would just turn into maybe a 4-hour kind of yelling / lecture session of everything that we did wrong.
Over a B.
Over a B. Or, even like spilling milk. That's something that happened. I remember getting in trouble a lot if we spilled a liquid. It was not simply just, oh, that's an accident, we'll clean it up. It's, why did you do that? And so much yelling and just getting in trouble over spilled milk. Yeah, and so it made sense to me later on just how unreasonable that kind of was.
But at the time,
As kids, you're just like, oh my gosh, I'm so bad. I did something wrong again.
mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, so much of that. So,
Man. So, I mean, so far, within like those 10 years, I mean, just the first 10 years, you've described yourself as feeling unsafe. And yeah, like, I guess, is that like basically the wraparound word throughout that time that you can remember of like how you felt in your household? Because
trying to think. Yeah.
from there, I do want to ask about if you remember what your thoughts of God was. Because I do remember you sharing with me how your parents were Christian.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so, like, was your dad God to you basically at the
I
time?
mean, I'm sure. Like, I actually don't remember my association with God at that young of an age, my childhood. Um, but yeah, essentially, because it's what I say, for in his case, like what I say, what I um, and like yeah, throughout our whole life, actually, he would refer to the Bible, and um, we would have church at home on Sundays, and he would be preaching from certain passages of the Bible, but um, I don't remember. And I do remember like hopping from church to church. Um, he was always trying to be involved, but then there's a certain point that it was too much for him, and so we left.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's my memory of church and God as a child. It's like we would go to church. Oh, why are we not going to that church anymore? Oh, we're at a new church.
Mm.
Oh, who are these people? Like, oh, we're not there anymore. We're at another one. So that's my vague memory of that. Yeah.
Would you say though, growing up, because I've heard some of this before, just between me and you and some other friends, but did you have any fun growing up? Do you have any good memories?
I'm pretty sure we did.
Like even at school, like did you have any favorite subjects or like did you have friends outside of your siblings?
I'm sure I did. But I actually, we grew up very sheltered too.
Mm-hmm.
And so, outside of our family, we actually weren't allowed to really hang out with other friends.
Mm.
I do remember a few maybe birthday parties I've gone to here and there, but outside of that, I didn't, yeah, I don't think I really had anyone I can remember were my friends outside of my siblings.
Mm.
Yeah.
Was your day to day for the most part then like pretty routine? Like your parents go to work, you guys go to school, and then you come back, and then I guess you guys either rest or do homework, and then your parents would come home, and then it sounds like your dad would have like a system from there. Was it kind of like that basically for the most part every day? And I
Yeah.
remember you said that your parents, when they came here, they did run a laundromat, but maybe that's later. That's like middle school, high school.
Yeah, yeah. They had a
Okay.
cleaners later on.
But yeah,
Yeah.
cleaners.
Hmm.
Okay. Well, now that we have a pretty good idea of what your childhood was like,
Hmm. Hmm.
then from there, what was, I guess, like your teenage years like? And
Yeah. So it only gets darker from here, guys. So
no,
you gotta set it up. You gotta set up the darkness and the hard times to
it's crazy
review.
because I would have, like, because again I've listened to this before, but more so in pieces. And even for me, I'm realizing, your childhood is really just the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, please continue.
I mean, yeah. So like we've we've both said so far in this podcast a lot. Like if you remember, I'll try to remember. I don't know if I remember, and I think that's. I mean, I think the technical term is dissociative amnesia, right?
Gosh.
And so like because of trauma and certain things like hard things that happened in your life, your brain starts to detach the memories to protect yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's obviously what's happened to me so much in my childhood. And so if I thought childhood was bad, I think my teenage years and kind of this um, next part of my life until college, yeah, I think I remember less.
Mm.
And the memories that I do have are very, um, I mean, yeah, very dark, very hard. And I think that those memories in itself probably caused my brain to go into that more, like kind of, okay, let me associate more. I have to protect myself from all of this pain. And so, for sure, I think the pressures of needing to study, needing to perform well in school to, one day become a doctor. Like his dream for all four of us to become doctors and for all of us to open up a practice together. And so his dreams for us, ever since we were little was for us to go to med school and, all these things. And so,
Like almost any typical
right.
Korean parent.
Yes. And
He's
so
just 5 steps.
5, 10 steps.
Anyways.
Yeah. And so, the pressure of that grew. And so we were to go to school. We had to wake up super early in the morning.
What's early? When what time was school?
Do you remember I told you this? We had to wake up at like 4:30 in the morning
Oh, I do.
every day.
Oh, I do.
And then we had to study, quote, quote, study, which was basically us sitting at a desk, like dozing off and falling asleep. But and then no, like we weren't allowed to do any extracurriculars or sports or anything like that, because then right after school we'd have to come straight home, do our homework, do more studying.
What did you guys end up studying during that time?
I don't remember.
The study times.
We just did nothing. We just
The act of it.
Yeah, the act of it. But we did that. But for sure, the relationship between my parents, I think that's where I saw it the worst. And they fought a lot, a lot. And so the few memories I do have is of them fighting, screaming, like it turned physical, everything. But I think the worst part of it was that they put me as the oldest in the middle of their fights. They would call me in the middle. They would tell me what the other person did wrong and then ask me to decide who was wrong. Who do you think is at fault here? And so when they would ask me these things, I'm in middle school. I'm a teenager and I'm like, I don't know. And if I choose one person, like it's not about the right answer. And so they would kind of put me in the middle, and I remember thinking, man, this is horrible. This is a horrible way to handle conflict. And
Wow, you knew that even then.
I mean, yeah, I knew that much, but it didn't hit me till later, like just how much that was gonna affect my marriage and just everything. So yeah, like their relationship was probably the most toxic at that point. And then so in turn, I think just all of those elements combined, I was probably at my lowest in terms of what is the point of living? Like, what is the point of life? And so I remember
That's what every day looked like for you then.
Yeah.
The studying in the morning, going to school, coming straight back, doing homework, studying,
Yeah.
getting caught up in your parents' fights. And then I'm sure your dad, in the meantime, is pointing things out about you and your siblings and
Of course.
getting mad at you guys. That was like a daily thing.
Right. And if one person did something wrong out of the four of us, it always started at the top. And I know that that's probably typical of a lot of kids too. But again, it wasn't just hey, they're your sibling, you need to take care of them better. It was a very personal attack and a very demeaning attack. And so, yeah, so many days and years of that, you begin to wonder, what is the point? And so, I remember daydreaming a lot about what would it be like if I just wasn't here.
In
It would just
middle
be better.
school?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, definitely I would. I remember I was on the third floor of our house and I would be looking down. I'm like, what if I just jumped out right now? What if I just jumped and fell? And it's dark, but I felt that would be such a sweet relief.
From what you were going through.
Yeah, from what I was going through. And so it was the darkest time frame, I think, of my life.
Middle school and high school.
middle school, high school. Also, yeah, I'm a teenager. I'm sure there was so much going on anyways,
Yeah, hormonally and even socially.
even socially, for sure. Like, I would have the friends that I did at school, but once I left, I'm not going to see them till the next day. Once I left on Friday, I wouldn't see them till Monday. You know, it wasn't.
Were you allowed to go to like your friends' houses or like their birthday parties and
I don't think so.
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Do you remember doing like anything with your friends outside of school?
So in high school, the the way that I was able to kind of hang out with my friends was I had to create new clubs at school, right? Because if I'm trying to become a doctor, if I'm trying to go to med school, then I have to have like a really good record, right? So then I was like, I told, my dad, hey, I created a SAT club and we're all going to study SAT together after school. He's like, okay. So then we would just, sit around after school and we just talk and play. But I'm like, yay, I'm not at home. I don't have to go home. I can stay here after school till the after school clubs ended, and then I could ride the bus home. And so I found little ways like that. And then even in high school, and then also in high school, I started skipping because during school hours, he didn't know
Yeah.
what I was doing. So then I started skipping classes and I wasn't doing anything bad during that time. Like, honestly, we just went to like Chipotle or like,
Nice.
we went to another friend's house and we just played or hung out. But to me, man, I was like, I'm so bad.
I mean,
Like, I'm such a rebel.
yeah, like after sharing everything you had to go through, and probably this constant feeling that you're a bad person, anyways.
Right,
So
right,
your
right.
dad instilled in you, so yeah, that was like you doing you killing somebody.
That's like the worst thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I had to do in order to hang out with my friends because I
Okay.
couldn't really do anything outside of it.
But I guess as far as then like your father's concerned, there was if you were to ever ask, can I go to the library with my friends? Can I go to the movies? Never.
No.
Wow.
Yeah. I tried, I think a lot of times to try to convince him. We all did.
What was his response?
No.
Oh, just no.
Yeah.
Was
No.
there ever a time that you fought back? Because teenage years are usually again, as you said, the rebellious years. And even your relationship with your parents. I know it was for me for sure. And I feel like many others. Because you start getting like a little more brave and you start wanting things a little stronger. And
Of course.
what did that look like for you?
I mean, we tried. I'm sure. I think there was a time I really wanted to go to the movies. Actually, if I remember, I think he let us go to Homecoming one year.
Wow.
And that was because I think my sister was like a class officer. You know how they had. Yeah, and so she was like, I have to go. And so then I went with her. Yeah, I remember, I think that was like, it always had to be, there always had to be a good enough reason.
But why? Why do you think, like, I guess, I mean, if you could even dissect the way he thought, like, what was the big deal for you to go out to a movie to watch your friends to him?
I think it was the possibility that we could get influenced. He was also huge on like being innocent, purity, and he through his own experience, his friends, people he's known, he just knew people were bad. That's something he said a lot. You can't trust anybody. People are so bad. To the point where he would talk about people so negatively. It was almost like, except for him, like himself, everyone was like unrighteous. And they're just so, they're so bad that you shouldn't associate yourself with them.
Hmm.
And so, even more so as a teenager, the temptations, the
Right.
the
It's
things
more.
the things you can fall into, he's like, you will not fall into that, and it was his way of, I guess, protecting us,
Hmm.
and then also having control over us, so that that will never be the case.
I mean, but honestly, I, as an adult, I mean, I know you understand this too, especially as a mother.
Mhm.
Like, you can empathize with that sentiment. And we do have, like, lots of conservative friends that are pretty strict over everything that you just said too, like having a similar mindset.
Yes.
But I guess the difference is that it was never really like this. I want you to understand because I love you,
Right.
and this
Right.
is this is the way because XYZ.
Mm-hmm.
It was more so people are bad, so you
Mhm.
can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't trust you, so you can't do it. I don't trust them, so you can't do it.
Right. Right.
And then, with the backbone of utter fear anyways, that's been built up to this point.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess, like, even though the intentions, or actually I can't say intentions, but even though maybe the value of what he was saying was good,
Yeah.
could have been.
Right.
I guess it's the heart behind it or the intention.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point you make, because that's actually what made our childhood so confusing.
Hmm.
Is because, like, I think for some people who have gone through a very abusive father, it was strictly just very kind of like nonsensical. It was just maybe we've heard many stories of fathers who were maybe alcoholics,
Mm-hmm.
that would, in their drunkenness, would hurt his children or lash out on his children or something like that. I think if it was something like that, I mean, it's still wrong and it's still horrible, but it would make almost a little more sense to me, right? Like, it was because he was so drunk, and there's like a lot of issues. But I think for my dad, it was always around this kind of like, yeah, righteous air of,
Yeah, yeah.
like, it's because God says so, and because this is what is right. And he always would emphasize that, like, this is what is right. This is how you need to live. And after, like, his 3-4 hour lectures, some of it started really kind of almost making sense to us.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, okay, I guess you're right. And even as children being shaped like that at an early age, you just almost kind of know deep inside like something's wrong, but you don't know any better.
Mm-hmm.
And so you just believe what he has to say and almost trust, in a way, his logic,
Mm-hmm.
his unreasonable logic, but to us sounded reasonable as children. And it wasn't until adulthood that now we can identify, oh my gosh, that was very unreasonable logic.
Yeah.
But I think that's what was so confusing for so long for us.
Mm.
Yeah. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does, and it doesn't.
No.
It does because, like, as someone that's known your story, like, there is a lot of selfish ambition from the things that your father would say to you guys.
Mm-hmm.
And so, because in adulthood, as you said, you're able to pinpoint, oh, although the words were good, because he was so power hungry, the heart of it was
Mm-hmm.
corrupt.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's where the disconnect was.
Yeah. Yeah.
But as a kid, yeah. So yeah, I think it's proper to say that it was confusing.
Yes. Very. Very. And so they're all throughout high school. And, I think about my siblings a lot during that time. And I think we were all in survival mode.
Mm-hmm.
Not just like personally, but just collectively, we were surviving individually just next to each other.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't know how to go to each other and comfort each other because we never learned those skills. And so when one person was getting in trouble or had just gotten in trouble or anything, we also, again, he did such a good job in training us to not meddle, like not to go there and be like, hey, yeah, I know it was hard, I know that was bad, or like then we'd get in trouble again. So we all just kind of had to be quiet. We we were just all surviving, and so yeah, I think that's something that God had to really help me, and with healing too, is that, like, I think something I've told you too is like, I wish I stood up for them.
Yeah.
Like, I wish I was able to get in there and be like, no, you're not going to do this to them or anything. But I just, I was wired to just be silent.
All of you were. There was no way. Unless you had like this super, super strong, like, no, even then, because you've been trained
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
birth to
Yeah.
be a certain way.
And so that was our kind of way of living, even with each other. And
Man, it sounds really lonely
it
and
was,
sad.
even though we were all there and like we knew we had each other, but there was still, yeah, a deep, deep loneliness, with all of us that, we don't realize until we're talking about it now as adults. Yeah.
We are talking a lot about your dad, which shows how huge
No.
he was in terms of how you even lived your life, how you viewed yourself, all the insecurities, and
Right. Right.
because your day to day wrapped around everything he wanted.
Mm-hmm.
That is, I mean, yeah, like that's really intense, but that's some dedication from your dad to do that, like at all times.
Yeah, I think again, it's his need for control, and I I think later on we realized that it's also, he was afraid. I think he was really afraid of having four children and like not really knowing how to raise them, and needing to just hold this, tight grasp on us for as long as he could. And so I never thought of it that way, that maybe as a parent, he also didn't know what he was doing and he was trying to figure it out on a day to day basis, just like kind of I am. But again, I think the way he handled it
Yeah.
and the way that, yeah, like you said, I mean, I wish I didn't have to talk about him so much,
Yeah.
when I talk about my childhood and,
That it was something else or a plethora of other things.
yeah, my middle school years, my high school years. When I listen to some other people's testimonies, I'm like, wow, that's a great memory. That's really nice. And like, yes, maybe if I really sit down with myself and I try to squeeze out, good memories, and that's something my mom says a lot to me, is like, it wasn't always bad. She said that, she says that to me
Yeah.
a lot. She's like, there were a lot of good times too, and you guys were happy children. And I'm like, really? But, she's like, your dad, and in, I guess, on her side, seeing it as a parent, and again, how hard it was for her, it's like, I guess, yeah, what he did was wrong, but in a way, he was trying to do his best with what he knew. And so, I mean, that could be a whole other thing, but I think they just did what they could.
Yeah.
It was survival for them too, on their end, and
And it ended up becoming this intense. I mean, clearly, yeah, it definitely got more intense when you got into your teenage years, because that study time, that's
was-
the study time.
it was just crazy. Just, it was so extreme.
Like, did you ever have like downtime at your house?
I'm pretty sure we did. Yeah, I feel like he did let us still be kids in that way, like we play and, all these things, but as a child, it's hard to remember those things. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, probably because the other stuff weighed so much more and probably
Exactly.
happened more
Right. Right.
than the fun, happy
Right.
playtimes.
Right. Right.
I see.
Yeah. So that says a lot about kind of the way our minds and our hearts work too, and how we are kind of, I don't know. There is something in us that does try to like put certain things in place to protect ourselves.
So then, did you have any more progressive thoughts about God during this time? Like, what was church life like in your teenage years?
So very similar. We tried out churches here and there. I actually at one point in time we went to Cape CW
Oh.
when it was across the street where Pilgrim is now.
Oh.
So before
Wait,
the
I think
whole
it's-
yeah, I think I told you, but yeah, before the whole split happened, we were going there. I remember, I think June was the president
of youth group.
of youth group.
Wow.
And I remember like introducing myself and everything. But yeah, I remember going there for a little bit. My parents were going there, but again, something happened. He got offended or something, so he stopped going. But he still let me go.
Oh, like you and your siblings?
I think my siblings were too young. I think he still allowed me to go to like youth group.
Okay.
So then he would try to drop me off. So there was one particular Sunday though that I went and he tried to drop me off, but the doors had a lock and chain around it.
That whole like there was like that
Yeah.
whole drama and this church split and stuff, right?
Yeah, and so I was like, what is happening, And then initially he dropped me off and I was trying to see what was going on and I saw this lady outside. Excuse me. And so I was like, what's going on? And she just laughed at me cuz I was like this young kid trying to
Go to youth group.
trying to ask her about the probably intense drama that was going on. But yeah, I think my dad noticed something was off, and so he came pick me up again, and that was kind of like the last time I went to KPCW until
Wow.
until 2017. But that was probably the last time I also went to church, and then
How 20 when was this?
I don't even remember. But pretty much all of high school, I didn't go to church.
Huh.
Yeah. And so we did church at home. So every Sunday, my dad would be the pastor. He would be the preacher. He would do the worship songs. We would sing like a hymn and then he'd give a message. Yeah. And then that was our every Sunday until I went to college. Yeah.
Whoa. I didn't know that. Which makes me interested now to how you even decided to join OICF
That
when
was,
you got into
yeah,
VCU.
that's crazy too.
Okay. So let's keep going.
Okay. So especially, and so with high school being the way it is, like you mentioned earlier, my parents had a cleaners. And so that was another thing. It was like because we weren't allowed to
Summer
hang out with friends.
vacation. No school.
No
What did you do?
Yeah, so no school. Like, we never looked forward to summer. Like what was the thing that we would write in our yearbooks?
Hags, have a great
Yeah,
summer.
yeah. Hags, have a great summer. Every time I see it, it's like that's not. I'd be sad. I'm like, this is not going to be a great summer. We never looked forward to vacations or spring breaks or anything because we'd have to then go help our parents at the cleaners. And so essentially they got, the cheapest form of child labor for children working for them. And so we'd have to help them every summer and we'd work there. And after we were done helping them work, we'd have to study, so it's just kind of this.
So what time would you go open to close?
Yeah, so we'd have to go from 7 to 7. It took us an hour to get there
Monday through
back and
Friday.
forth. Monday through Friday, they open Saturday too.
Wait,
so we
that's
were there.
longer than a school day.
Yeah. So
You were there all day,
we were there
every day.
all day, every day.
What did you do?
We worked for half the day and then we had to study.
Wait, what? But what could you? Like, are children allowed to touch like those machines and stuff?
Probably not. Probably
Oh.
not.
And it's like hecka hot in there.
Right. It's
And
like
it's the summer.
it's like 90, 100 degrees. You know.
How
Yeah.
old was Sam?
He was in probably middle school, something like that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So that's
And
where we
then
spent our summers.
7 to 7, and then 7:30, whatever, when you get home, you have to study?
No. I think we probably just
Collapsed
like
in your bed
did
until
our
the
thing
next
and then
morning.
went to sleep.
Oh
Yeah, and
my.
we had to sleep early. So yeah, that's kind of what we did. And so I remember the last couple months before, so I got into VCU, the first kid going to college out of the four. And this is where I started tasting this excitement of, oh my gosh, it's happening. Like I'm going to be free.
Were you looking forward to leaving home?
Oh my gosh. I made a list. So when at the cleaners, I would make a list of everything that I would need to take to college, from pillow to pillowcase to like pens and pencils and
My gosh.
backpack. And I would make this list every single day.
Pencil sharpener.
Yeah. Yeah. Like Post-it pad, like everything in detail. I would make a list every single day because I was so excited. I would make it every day, sitting there and dreaming of the day that I would be free.
When you decided to go to VCU, did you know anyone going? Like, did you have friends?
Oh, yeah. So one of my high school friends, two of them, they were also going.
Nice.
And they ended up being roommates.
By the way, what high school did you go to?
Stonewall Jackson.
Wait, didn't you go to Robinson?
I went to Robinson for 2 years.
Uh-huh.
And during my sophomore year, we moved to
Manassas.
Haymarket.
Oh, oops.
Yeah, Haymarket, Gainesville area. And so then I ended up going to Stonewall Jackson in Manassas.
Nice.
Yeah,
nice.
so I met 2 girls there. We were all going to go to VCU together.
Nice.
So yeah, we were excited.
That's exciting.
Yeah, and they were also going to be living in the same dorm as me. And so, yeah, it was really exciting. And so I was making those lists. I was looking forward to the day, and then the day finally came.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I remember like my family dropping me off at the dorms. And I think obviously I was sad because I was saying bye to my siblings and stuff, but I was too excited for myself.
Yeah.
I don't really remember
Yeah.
thinking too much of that, but I just remember they left. I was by myself, maybe for the first time in my whole life.
I wonder what your dad was thinking this whole time.
I'm sure. I mean, for him, it's like, he was sad. He looked sad because, his first child,
Yeah.
like going to college and everything. He's leaving me. But at the same time, I feel like he knew this was part of the process.
Oh, he still had that kind of sense in him.
Yeah. I mean, as you know, he still had
Oh, you're right.
a
You're right.
grip
You're right.
on
Okay,
me,
sorry. Yeah.
even in the midst of that.
Continue.
So I was standing there. I remember standing there by myself, and I didn't know what to do because, like, I'm by myself. I'm free.
Yeah.
Like I maybe I sniffed a little bit and smelled the taste of freedom. And so I go into my dorm. I'm sitting by myself in my dorm room bed. I just smile. I'm just smiling by myself. I'm so
Smiling
happy.
with you.
I'm so happy. And then I'm like, what do I do? What do we do next? All this stuff. And then my friend calls me and she says, "Do you want to go to a party?"
Ooh.
And so I don't know anything. So I'm like, okay.
You've never been to a party before.
No, never. So, but I'm in college.
Yeah.
I'm free. So, my 2 friends and I guess like an older brother or people that she knew picked us up.
Mm-hmm.
So we were on our way to this party,
Mm-hmm.
and then one of my friends, she got a phone call, And she had been going to a church here in Nova. So one of her older brothers hit her up and said, "Hey, I know you're at VCU. There's a fellowship that meets every Friday night. It's called OICF.
Ah.
It's Friday night. You should go check it out." And she's like, "Oh, okay." So then she hangs up the phone and she turns to us. She's like, "Hey, actually, there's a fellowship. It's like a church group type of thing that gets together every Friday. Do you want to go there?"
What? When you guys were on your way to a party?
Yeah. And so I was like, "Okay." I don't know anything. Again, I'm in college. I'm free. I'm just,
Like anywhere is
Yeah.
perfect. Anywhere is fun.
but little did I know that was kind of the start. So we went to OICF,
One in Christ Fellowship.
One in Christ Fellowship, at VCU.
Servants Ministry.
Service Ministry. And so we go there instead, and the rest is history. Like I didn't leave after that.
Did you like it?
From the beginning?
Yeah.
Yes.
Why?
I walk in and they're worshiping Jesus. They're singing songs about Jesus, and more than that, I think it was the people.
Immediately.
Immediately, they were so nice, so welcoming.
Okay, you know what though, Grace? I said this to you before. People have just, generally have like just favored you.
No,
People have liked you like off the bat.
no.
I mean, there's just something about you.
Maybe because I don't have RBF or I just look friendly.
And innocent and pure, maybe, yeah. Okay, but anyways, okay, so you fell in love with the people.
Yeah, they were just so welcoming, so nice to me, everything. And then I knew also, even though my faith might not have been strong, I knew I probably shouldn't go to a party. I probably should choose something else, even on a Friday night in a college, right? And so, yeah, the rest is history. I was part of the fellowship, and again, like so many of the older brothers and sisters, I do remember they were so good to me. They took care of me, and so immediately starting my second year, I wanted to serve.
Wow.
Yeah. So okay, I'm so blessed by this fellowship. How can I give back? How can I serve? How can I do this for other brothers or sisters that come into the fellowship?
Wow.
And so, yeah, by second year, I was like a small group leader. I was trying to serve that way. And that's kind of actually when God really opened my eyes to Him, my second year of college.
Wow.
So I remember there was a speaker that came. And, back then, after every message, I'm sure like people who have been part of service ministry knows, but every retreat, it's like, if you want prayer, come to the front.
Yeah.
If you're called to missions, come to
We'll
the
lay
front.
hands.
Yeah, we're going to lay our hands on you. We're going to pray over you.
Intercede over you.
Yeah. And so I did that because it's like, I want prayer. And so I went up and someone was praying over me. And the prayer they were praying was, God loves you so much. God loves you. God loves you. And they just kept repeating that. And I remember I eventually started kind of like physically shaking my head.
Like, no,
No.
he doesn't.
Yeah, no.
Oh.
So I'm like this. And so this person was like, are you okay? Right? Like, are you saying no? Or like, are you nodding, like shaking your head no? I'm like, yeah. Wait, why would God love me? I don't understand. They're like, but He does. I'm like, again, I don't understand what you're talking about. Why would God love me? And I straight up said, I don't believe you. I don't believe you. And I was in such denial. I just kept saying that to her or him or whoever paid for me. And I think their encouragement was, I really want you to understand this. I do want you to believe this because this is our God. And so once they left and everything, and I remember during that season, that's what I wrestled with a lot. Like, God, you say you love me. Why would you love someone like me? Because, again, my whole childhood, that's not the God that's not the God I saw. That's not the God that was preached to me every Sunday by my dad. It was, no, you're like, you're so bad. You do all these things that are so bad, so wrong, so bad. That's all I heard. And so to associate God loving me and that that being okay was just, again, mind blowing. But I do remember very clearly it was during that season where, as I prayed and as I cried those tears of God, I want to understand. He opened my eyes to him and revealed himself to me. And I remember just like this flood of, I don't know, acceptance, of love, of like, what I thought was what I saw in my earthly father. God is dispelling that. He's saying, no, that's not how it should be. As your heavenly Father, I love you and you are safe. You like it. It is okay. Like, you don't have to be afraid. And so that was just, that was life changing in itself. Like, trying to, and then now I was like, oh my gosh, I really want to know who this true God is. Not the one that I grew up listening to or hearing about, but that's where then through all like the messages I heard at OICF and retreats and everything, it was just, well, if you really want to know who the true God is, you have to read the Bible. That's where it tells you. I'm like, okay, and like with my new childlike faith, I'm reading the Bible. I'm like, I want to know. And this hunger and the song we probably sang so much back then, this consuming fire, fan into flame, a passion for your name. Yeah. Like that's where that
Spirit of God.
Yeah. Fall in this place. Like it was kind of an anthem, I guess, in that time frame.
It's a great song. Every word is great now that I think about it. Okay.
But yeah, so that was kind of what was happening. And what was ironic is because I was in that place of like, oh my gosh, God, I just want to know you. I want to be like you. It was a lot of feelings of initially, God revealing his love for me. So I'm like, oh, I feel so loved by God. I feel so secure, so safe in him, like I said, which was the opposite of kind of how my earthly father made me feel. So I'm in that place. And then this older sister, who had kind of also been influential in my life, she's like, hey, I really want you to meet this pastor. She is amazing.
Traumatic figure number 2 coming up.
I really want you to meet this pastor. She's amazing. She's so gifted, blah, blah, blah. And so I meet her, and off the bat, she's this really warm person. She really was.
She was.
Yeah. And she prays for me and similar, like God loves you, all this stuff. And then she's, after the prayer, she's like saying really nice things about me. Saying,
that's how she hooks you.
Yeah.
She throws in her line, hooks you, and then does a slow reel.
Yes. And she's like, I feel like you're going to be a great leader. Like, I want you to serve with me, blah, blah, blah. And so I'm like,
this was your second year or third year?
I think by this point, it was like maybe my third year.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I quickly got very involved. I became one of the leaders of Holy Fire. And, again, this is when I'm still in OICF. So as I'm a leader in OICF, I'm also a leader in Holy Fire. And
I think I was here at this point.
Yes.
Because I remember this little schism.
But I don't think you were like coming out to OICF as much yet.
No,
you had just gotten to VCU.
I was walking away. But yes, continue.
And so There was a very heavy kind of like enmeshment of the two for a period, and it almost led to the extinction of OICF. I remember this. But during that time, I will say it felt all too familiar. Like, as good as it was, there was another part of me that it felt familiar and wrong because the gospel message that was kind of being preached and being pushed on people was if you really love God, then your life should show it, which means, and then it led to a lot of legalism, right? You shouldn't watch any secular movies, no secular music, just holy thoughts, holy things all the time. You should just be reading your Bible and praying. That's it. Outside of that, if you do anything else, you're a sinner. And it was so intense.
Yeah.
And so prayer meetings, this is where I learned how to pray for like 5-6 hours.
Yeah. I will say, I do appreciate
Yes,
that.
I will always say that.
She did a good job training us how to pray well and read the Bible
Yes,
for a long time.
yes. And that's probably the phase of my life that I practiced that the most.
Yeah.
So I grew a lot in that sense. But yeah, during those prayer meetings, yeah, so intense. You know, we're talking about sin, and then she's like, "Someone is sinning in this room.
Yeah.
Confess your sins right now." And so it was very intense, and I knew in my spirit like there's something wrong about this, but I didn't know any better because I went from all these feelings, God, yeah, oh yes, you're amazing, no foundation of knowledge, and I'm just going straight into this, and so I'm just believing in this person and what she's saying, and I'm just going with it.
It's almost like your dad all over again.
It's kind of funny.
Have you heard of Stockholm Syndrome?
Yes, I have. I've heard of this.
Okay, anyways, keep going.
And so I remember I was in it for a few years. Yeah, OICF almost disappeared, but it didn't, thank God. And then I do remember at one point I ran into one of the older brothers, like one of the older brothers that really cared for me my freshman year and my beginning years of
Wanji?
OICF. No, this guy named Myung.
Oh, Myung.
Yeah.
He's
So I ran into him in the parking lot. And I was like, "Hey, how are you doing?" And we were talking, and he was like, "You know, Grace, I don't see you smile anymore." He like just said that out of the blue. I'm like, "What? What are you talking about? I smile all the time. See, I'm smiling now." Like it's me, Grace. He's like, "It's been a while." And like we lived in the same apartment complex, so we still ran into each other, even though I think he was like already graduated at that point, but still living there. And so after that, I remember going back to my apartment, maybe our apartment.
Maybe our
Yeah,
apartment.
and I was like, what is he talking about? And then it dawned on me that there was, again, this darkness, this kind of depression, this loneliness that had formed in me, knowing that this is probably wrong. Like what I'm involved in, the intention may be good, and the intention may have been pure before. It's just kind of warped into something else. Like, oh my gosh, I need to get out of here. I need to get out of this. And I remember the next day was Sunday, and we also have like church service. And I'm a leader, so I need to be there early. We have prayer meeting. I just don't go. I just don't show up. They're calling me. They're trying to reach me. And like, that was it. Yeah. And I remember later on, I was back, full force in OICF. And a younger brother had come to our fellowship, and he was new. So I was like, "Hi, I'm Grace. Nice to meet you." And he goes, "I know you." "Oh, I don't think I've ever met you before." He's like, "No, I know you. I've heard about you, and you're blacklisted."
Yeah, the
from
blacklist.
from
The Holy Fire
Holy Fire. Yeah.
blacklist. Yes.
So when I came out of it, it was like, oh my gosh, how did I fall into that?
Mm-hmm.
I was confused for a while. I was asking a lot of questions. But then from there came this realization that, yeah, I had no foundation. Why am I even Christian? Why do I believe in what I believe in? Like, I really need to know this. I need to search for these answers and seek it for myself, because then I can easily fall into just another cult or another person that comes along the way. And so that's where I wanted to learn theology. Yeah.
Hmm.
And so I remember asking Charlie,
Mm-hmm.
we were dating at the time, but I was like, what is theology? I just want to know some basic knowledge of it so I can, yeah, like build on this foundation. And so he, for one of my birthdays, I think he bought me Systematic Theology by
By
Wayne,
Wayne
by
Grudem.
Wayne Grudem. I read maybe 5 pages.
Yeah, that
I was
book.
like, this
Man,
is not
it
for
is.
me.
It is. Yeah. It is dense. It is not. People give that book to like someone gave that to me too,
Yeah.
and I mean, I consider myself like the most layman of the laymen of the laymen,
Yeah.
which is why I pick on Pastor Paul. Like, what does this mean for me?
Yes.
Like, what is the relevance?
Right.
Because
right.
I want to be able to practice this stuff. So that book, I don't want it to be a traumatic, like educational book, but
yeah.
man, it is pretty traumatic. You open the first couple pages and you're like rereading the
gosh.
same sentence
Yeah, like 10 times.
10 times and okay, but the sentiment, Charlie's sentiment was beautiful.
Okay, sure.
Cuz that is a good
I mean, yes.
not that I would know, but
Yeah,
okay.
so it didn't matter because I'm reading the book and I'm like, what does this mean? So it just ended up being like him teaching me.
Ooh, even better cuz you guys were dating.
Yes. So as he was teaching me, I started getting more into theology. And a lot of the things that he was teaching me about like being chosen and what that means, and this grace that we talk about that we don't deserve, but he gives us. It all aligned. Like I knew I believed it, but it was putting these terms and putting just more knowledge in the midst of that, and that helped me become more confident in my faith. So Charlie, he ended up teaching me a lot of theology. It helped me grow in my foundation. Of course, I did my own kind of research too. That was like maybe the first and maybe last time I read a lot of books. That because I was hungry. I just
Yeah.
really wanted to become more sure and confident and grounded in my faith. And so as I did that, I think that's where the conviction to stay and now staff at OICF was so strong, because I was thinking college is such a formative time for many of us in our faith. And so this could happen to other students too, not just me. And so I felt a sense of conviction and responsibility to stay behind and kind of help guide the students and make sure that doesn't happen to them. And so
Were you staff when you were married or before you were married?
before, yeah, I was, and then Charlie and I were staff for 1 year
As a
after we got
married
married,
couple.
but I was staff maybe 6 years by myself.
Wow.
And so I staffed, and then I worked eventually at the same time, and I was serving this fellowship. But I think during this time is also where God taught me humility and glory. Like those two words are very prominent in my time there because I was the opposite of those. I was very prideful, and I was, as much as, again, the intention of it, like it started noble, right? Like I want to stay behind God. I want to serve your people. I want to make sure no one gets led astray. Eventually, I do remember feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm doing so much. I'm doing so much for these students, and they don't seem grateful, or like it started becoming more of what I was doing and what I was sacrificing, and all these things. And so I remember praying a lot through that. God, show me what it means to serve, like to live for your glory and to really be humble in the midst of serving. And yeah, I think maybe my last 2 years there, I might have really, God really opened my eyes to that. And I was really able to practice true humility in my serving and really attesting everything that I do to his glory. So yeah, it was after that then, like I said in the beginning, we had to, through some like unforeseen circumstances, we had to come to Nova. So Charlie and I staffed for 1 year together, and that's when, I'm sure you heard in Pastor Andrew's Grace story, he took over.
Yes, and then he became Steph. The baton was passed.
Yes, the baton was passed. And so
And now we're all at the same church together.
we're all good friends and serving together.
Okay, side note. I ran into a newcomer at our church a few weeks ago, and she is a college student at VCU.
Okay.
And I said, "Oh, I used to go to VCU. Oh, and so did that person over there." I pointed at you. Like, "Oh, and so did that person over there, Pastor Andrew." So, well, actually, they were staff. And then she said, "Wow, all these alumni. I don't know anything about anyone before me."
Yeah.
Like, whoa, yeah, like, and I said to her, there is actually a rich heritage at One in Christ Fellowship. Like, a lot of wonderful Christians came out of that ministry and are living out their faith to this day, 5, 10, 15 years past. I don't know anyone older than that, but
Yeah.
and she was so encouraged, and she said, "Is there a way that, like, our ministry now can get in touch?" And I'm like, "I don't know, actually, because our lives are pretty busy, but just know that
Yeah.
I loved OICF.
Yeah. We were all part of it.
We were all part of it."
I
Okay, so the
know.
baton was
Very exciting.
passed.
Time was passed. We came to Nova, and yeah, and this is kind of where now all the aspects of marriage and motherhood
Yes.
and church community and these things really came swirling all together. Even our business together, you and I, like,
That's right.
yeah, it all like just was a big whammy. And I felt like this is where a lot of what I had gone through in my childhood, growing up, everything, but most importantly, what I had gone through in college, and just again, his revelation to me and all these things, like, it really got tested.
Yeah. Okay, randomly, I remember in college, I've shared this with you before because you shared it with me. I was Grace's roommate in college.
Yes.
And every so often, when I would somehow find myself getting woken up at like 5:30 in the morning, it would be because I would hear like mumbling in Korean. And I'd peer over, and Grace is on the phone with someone reading this whole notebook page written in Korean. She wrote it herself. And I later found out that it was her dad calling her every single morning for you to read an article in Korean that you have to summarize and write out yourself.
Yes. Yes. And this was his maybe
Every
like,
morning.
yeah, this was probably his last stand.
And if you didn't, you had like 37 missed calls until you called him back.
Yeah. Yeah. It wasn't. Yeah, it was very intense.
Yeah, so
too.
that still carried into your college years.
Yeah, so even though I was physically away from him,
Yeah.
he still needed some way to, have control over me. So then it was, well, not only should you be studying and trying to become a doctor, and going to med school, but you also need to report back to me, and keep up with your Korean. So I want you to find an article online, summarize it in Korean, and read it to me. And now I think about it, I'm like, why did I have to do that?
Because he could have come and gotten you.
Right.
Because he did do that.
He did threaten me, and he did try to do that. But it was crazy how much he still had a hold on me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, for many, many years.
Yeah.
It was really the last maybe 5 to 8 years that it got better. But
Yeah. So all of this is, just fast forward again. You're married, dealing with your marriage, your relationships in general, being a mother,
Right.
starting a business with me.
yeah. I don't know what I was thinking. Like, now that I think about it, I'm like, we did that. That happened all at kind of like
The same time.
simultaneously.
Yeah.
But
Because you got pregnant right away.
yeah, very soon after we got married, we're like, we're not getting younger. So we got pregnant with Abigail. So I'm newly married, and I'm trying to figure out what this means, right? Like, what does it mean to be married, to have a husband, to be a wife? And I'm in this identity. And then shortly after, I'm pregnant. So now I'm like, okay, I'm going to become a mother. What do I do with that? And then, yeah, now I'm gonna become a mother. So yeah, what do I do with that? Oh, but we should do something. We should do something.
You should make baby blankets.
Yeah, maybe we should do a baby product. No, let's do a videography company.
Yeah, since Joanna and I already do it,
Right.
you can be like the point person. And
Yeah,
we have this whole plan.
since I'm home with the baby anyways, I could be the admin. You guys would go and do the shooting. Yeah, and that's kind of how it all started. But I think in the midst of that, yeah, it was really hard. It was really hard to try to understand how to be all those things at once. And for instance, I mean, so in the business, I went from being in Richmond. While I was staffing, I was teaching preschool, so I was working at a school, and then with no experience in admin at all, now I'm an admin for a company. Back then I didn't even know how to like insert a link into an email, and it was just very basic things, but I just didn't learn how to do that.
Because you didn't have to do that when you
Right.
were working at the daycare, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm sure. I mean, we share this story a lot, but it was the first kind of like week we had been up and running, and so you want to do like a first mini shoot, and in the midst of it, I think there was excitement. So then there was this idea thrown out that I could maybe learn photography.
Right.
That's something I've never done before.
I remember.
But like, it's new, and in this time of my life, maybe I can learn it. We did the shoot. I tried to take some photos. And mind you, I've never even touched a camera in my life. The only camera I've used was our phone camera.
Yeah.
So then I took a few photos. I didn't handle it well. I looked at them. I was like, these are horrible.
Oh, yeah. I remember.
You and Joanna were so confused. Like, why are you so... Grace, you've never taken a picture before. Like, you've never...
You're so hard on yourself.
Never used a Canon in your life. Yeah, but that's when I realized, like, I'm so hard on myself. And so I think our business aspect brought a lot of that stuff out. Making mistakes, failing. In many people's perspectives, it's not a big deal. It's, and like...
It's like part of the learning process.
All the quotes, right?
All the quotes,
Yeah.
right.
You have to, like, make mistakes to learn.
Yeah.
What doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Yeah.
Like all these things, but that was so not innate in me at all. It was actually the opposite, where it's, again, you made a mistake, you suck. You're the worst. Like
You didn't get it right the first time?
Yeah.
Oh, you're a loser.
Yeah, something must be wrong with you.
Oh my God.
So I didn't realize how blaring that was
Mm-hmm.
until I think we were, I was faced with it in this business. There were obviously hints of it all around all the time, but it was interesting because as that was happening, now I'm a mother, and now I'm looking at my child, and Abigail, she's like 2.
Mm-hmm.
She spills like her milk.
Mm-hmm.
And in that moment, I'm like, it's okay.
Mm.
It's an accident. And I remember the first time I did that, I remember going to the bathroom and sobbing because I was like, that's how it should be.
Yeah.
Like, that's how it should have
That
been.
was your mother's heart to her daughter that didn't do something on purpose.
Yeah. Like, that was really just an accident.
Yeah.
She just was so excited about something and she knocked it over. Oh my gosh. And so I'm like, as I'm telling her, like, as she's doing things and I'm telling her, it's okay. Like, try again. If you are trying to build something like with toys and it falls, that's okay. Build it again. Try again. And like it carried on in third, 3, 4, 5, and even until now,
Mm-hmm.
that's something that I'm telling her, and it's like I'm also like physically experiencing that and learning that in the business.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, it's not that I'm forcing myself to be a certain person for my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
It was happening simultaneously.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was practicing it, and so I was able to then practice it with my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, there were a lot of aspects where, as a mother, I think the first like half of Abigail's life, something I would tell myself and probably to all of you guys too, I would always say like, I just have to do the opposite of what my dad did. Like, I will not be like him. I refuse to be anything like him. I remember saying that a lot. But through a lot of God's guidance and just, working on my own anger and my hatred or resentment that I had towards him, I think it's a lot healthier where it's like, yes, that is a part of my life.
Mm-hmm.
That's a part of my testimony, a big part of it, as this podcast will show. Like, it's a huge part of my testimony, but God is writing a new part. Yeah. And so in that, I think there's so much redemption.
Yeah.
And I was really able to see that in that beginning part of us coming to Nova and starting up all these things.
And your marriage.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, that's the biggest part,
Yeah.
right? Marriage really brings out the ugliest side of you. And even sides that, not just myself, but Charlie too, like we had no idea we had these sides in us, that we could push each other to be that angry or upset. But it comes out. But again, in those moments, I think there was a part of me that was like, maybe this is just how marriage is, right? Because that's the example I saw.
Right.
Just fight a lot. And so there was another part of me that was like, why would I want to be in a marriage like that?
Yeah.
Where like I'm just fighting all the time. And we were just so exhausted, because we were trying to figure all this out. Like I'm bringing my baggage, and I'm just having such a difficult time supporting Charlie in the ways that he needed. And like vice versa, there was a lot of kind of injustice that I felt, or entitlement or whatever. And so in the midst of figuring all that out, and then we have young children, and being so exhausted, we had to get to a point where we're like, if we stop caring, like if we are just so exhausted, and I know so many parents that have young children understand, like when you're so incredibly exhausted, you just don't want to care. It's just easier not to care. It's just too much. But I remember us having that talk of like, if we stop caring, then this marriage will end. And so as hard as it was, like we put the kids down, and by the time we like cleaned and everything, it was like midnight. We should be sleeping because the kids are going to wake up, soon. We talk it out. We talk for like 3-4 hours arguing, but like talking it out, going back and forth, trying to understand each other. And I remember that period too was just so hard but sweet. And then God also used that to redeem this idea of marriage for me. That you don't have to fight all the time. Because Charlie and I are very different people.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. I'm just letting everyone else know. But like, yeah, we're very different people. We don't see eye to eye on many different things, but the beautiful picture there too is that God brings even people like us together. And when it's ordained by him, then there is so much grace. Yeah, there's so much love there for us too, to really help us figure it out with one another. And in turn, like it's so important because it affects our everyday, and then how we raise our children. Yeah.
Reflecting on everything you've shared,
Yeah, yeah.
like how God the Father is safe. God the Father is redeeming.
Yeah.
Like he is someone that has constantly been by your side.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That he's someone that makes sense. And he's the one that has really brought everything together for you. Like through even like your circumstances in life, although like everything was a big whammy,
Yeah.
like through that,
That's what I thought.
through that, clearly God used that as very important circumstances
Yeah.
to pull things out of you.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a lot, but I think that's a good way to wrap it up. Kind
Yeah,
of
yeah, yeah.
reviewing and reflecting who God was, is, and how he's kind of sprinkled over your life.
Yeah, for sure. I think maybe there's like 3 things I could talk about. I mean, I could say a lot more, but we don't have all day. So I definitely think something that I learned in my testimony, in my life story, there was a period of time where I would ask God why a lot. Why, God? Why did you do this to me? Like, why is this happening to me? Why did I have to go through what I went through? Like, was that really the best way for me to learn and know you? Like, why did he have to be my dad? And why did I have to grow up in that family? And, like a lot of whys. And that was a lot of my prayers. That was a lot of my thoughts. That was a lot of my conversation. And there were certain moments where I would just realize, like, I really don't like how I am as a result of, like, what I went through. I really don't like how I handle these situations this way and everything. And so in the midst of all the whys, I remember, I think it was you went to a conference or like a retreat or something, and the speaker was a counselor. And again, it was just so, like, I guess, simple and maybe not so profound, but to me it was. And I think you were sharing how she explained how when you've gone through so many traumatic moments in your life, like, those memories come back. And I guess one of the suggestions she had was there's a difference in just remembering those moments and, like, remembering certain memories and being like, oh my gosh, that was so bad, or that was so hard. And just pinpointing that, as opposed to doing that with the Lord. And so I was like, what? I thought about it. And again, it's like so simple. I'm like, oh my gosh, this whole time I've just been asking the whys of, like, why did this happen to me? Oh my gosh, yeah, I remember another thing that happened that was so bad. Oh, and I would get so frustrated or angry or sad, and that would be it. But all those times, I remember those feelings would linger. And they would stay with me for, like, the whole day. It would ruin my mood.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I
or I'd
know.
like or I'd disappear. Remember I had hermit crab?
Yep.
So like, yeah, you guys would message me and 3, 4 days later I'd be like, oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Hey, guys.
Yeah.
Like, what in the world?
Yeah, it's like, oh my gosh, she's doing it again, you know? But then I tried it this way. Every time I had that memory or flashback or something, I remember praying, God, like, this sucks. This is so hard. It's so painful. I don't want to feel this way. Please continue to heal me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so as I did that, I think there was such a release of that moment. And then it was crazy. Like after that moment passed, after I prayed through it with God, it didn't linger. Like it's still there and like it'll come back and forth. And that's part of just the trauma.
In your process.
Yeah, and the process. But it was just so freeing. It was just so peace giving, you know, like God walked with me through it. He walked with me through that moment, and what I would have normally said at the end, like, why did that happen to me? It just became, oh, actually, now it's like I wouldn't have it any other way. Like the pain and the trauma and everything that I went through produced a joy in me that is unexplainable. You can't make it up. You can't force it upon yourself. You can't just talk it into yourself either. Like, yes, I'm joyful because, I'm in the Lord and it's okay. No, it's a deep-seated joy that, in spite of everything that happened to you, like God was with me, and he was with me then. He's still with me today, and he will be with me in the days to come. And so, God, I really said I wasn't going to get emotional today. But
I'm a sympathy crier. I'm not feeling anything right now.
sure. But yeah, so I stopped asking why, and I just started, it replaced it with just praise of him, acknowledging his goodness and his mercy over my life. And then I would say something else is that I'm a work in progress.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I wish I can sit here and say that, yeah, my life, like my relationship with my dad and everything is hunky dory and we're all good now. I remember like all the testimonies I heard in college too was a lot of those. Like, yeah, I was a drug addict, but like I found the Lord and now I'm here, and my relationship with my dad was horrible, but now he like came to Christ and we're best friends or something.
And happily ever after.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh wow, that's it was encouraging, but also disheartening because of where I was in in my relationship with my dad.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I think something that I would want to tell anybody is that, like, from now until probably the day I'm face to face with the Lord, I think this is something I'm dealing with, and I will have to deal with.
A lifetime of sanctification.
Yeah.
Working out your salvation. Those little dips, the hills, the valleys, the mountain peaks.
All of it.
Until we die.
Yeah. And so, like, I'm a work in progress. God is showing me things all the time. He's revealing more of himself to me every day. But for sure, I know his work is not finished in me. As it is for all of us, his work is not finished. And so I think there was a period of time where that would have been very daunting for me. But there is a joy and there is a excitement in knowing that oh, there's much more that like I will learn, and God, yeah, will reveal to me, and in that I will be sanctified. Um, there's even more redemption to be seen in my relationships, my family, everywhere. And so, yeah, I think there's a hope. There's a hope in that, and in such a hopeless world and such a hopeless culture we live in, yeah, there's hope in Christ. Yeah.
I think what stands out to me as your friend is as a witness on the sidelines, seeing just how much God has been with you. And I really believe that all the lessons that you have learned, whether it was like by your decision or not, it has reflected so much on like even the way that you parent your kids. This this balance of discipline, taking the time to explain things, showing grace and mercy.
Right.
That is all because number one, you know what not to do. You have this relationship with God. God has taught you so much through, like the reveal, like how He revealed Himself through His Word, and even like within your church community and your friends. And I have seen how God has really shaped you as a person through all of this.
Yeah.
And even like that's kind of what connects me and you too. Like this, we're able to have conversations about really anything. Like you get me, I get you, and it's because there's this like, I don't know. I'm pretty traumatized too.
Yes. Yes. The trauma bond.
Yeah, the trauma bond. But that's so special to me, and it's really rare to find a friend that can understand like the deepest, like saddest,
Parts of you.
confusing, dramatic
Yeah.
parts of a person. So
Yeah, for sure.
I know I'm encouraged. I know so many others that know you are too, including your kids. Yeah, you know, when you were talking about the spilled milk thing, you know, like you actually mentioned this twice, once with your dad when you were a kid, and you mentioned it again with how it was okay.
Yeah, with Abigail.
In your perspective when you saw your own daughter do it. But then recently, I remember I spilled water at your house. Like I think like a month ago.
Okay.
And she went, "Oh, Dad, it was an accident. It's okay. It's okay, Dad. Don't feel bad." And it just came out of her.
Yeah.
Like, wow. Like those things are being passed down to her to have that mindset of grace when grace is needed
Yes.
in a 7-year-old girl.
Yeah.
So-
Breaking generational sin.
Yeah.
But yeah, all through God's grace. Like because honestly, even us as someone who's gone through trauma, if it's like used for the dark side, you know, like if it turned another way, yeah, it would be the opposite of our response to maybe people or each other. It's, well, you don't know what it's like, right? Like what you're going through, it's nothing compared to what I went through. So suck it up, or, you know, like deal with it or something. It's not a big deal. Everyone's level of trauma or hardship or anything looks different. And so the fact that we can understand that for not just each other, but other people, like that, I feel like that's definitely God's grace too over our.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is really understanding that whatever you are going through is what you are going through, and that is the worst for you right now.
Yeah,
And like God is still working in that.
of course.
And so there's that empathy because you know what it feels like.
Of course.
I don't know. I think that is a gift though, because yeah, the dark side of it is quite natural to be like, what?
Yeah.
Grow up. This you have to go through this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or even like a growing distrust of everybody.
Right.
Becoming the ultimate cynic.
Yes.
Or having panic attacks at all times. Like you can grow to be an incredibly sensitive person too.
Right. And I think that's one more thing that I might say is, you know, people ask, what did God save you from? That's part of like your faith and your walk. And for me, it's like I would be a super cynical, bitter, sarcastic, mean person. The version that you may see of me now, based on how I grew up and what I went through, it shouldn't be like this. And so whenever I sing Amazing Grace, or when I think about grace in itself, and like there's a reason why that's my name, is because, yeah, God has shown me so much grace to bring me from death to life. Like I should have been dead. Like I should be so sad and depressed and on meds and like all these things, but he's delivered me from that, and again, I'm a work in progress, but that's also what's so wonderful.
I love it.
Yeah.
I guess, man, there is so much more that could be shared.
Yes, it could have gone so many different ways.
But I think this just means that we'll have to have another episode on, I don't know.
A topic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Marriage, raising children,
Yeah.
Relationships, friendships, ministry, whatever it is. But that's what Living Stones is for. So
Yes.
I hope that, is there any last words of encouragement or like, I don't know, any last thoughts that you have?
Just that, just keep, like when you asked me to share this, I was kind of like, I don't know where to start. I don't know what to say, but I think I would just say, yeah, start somewhere. Share your story. Your testimony and what you've gone through is not something you need to hide. And so even in the midst of your friendships, because there are a lot of people who long for good friendships. So a way to kind of dive into that in relationships is to share your testimony, to share certain things that have gone on in your life. And in that, there will be a lot of encouragement. And it's not just for yourself, but you're encouraging the other person. And so, yeah, kind of like I had to tell myself today, like, don't be afraid to share your story and know that, yeah, every part of it God is using, or he's used for his purpose and his will. So I'm encouraged. Yeah.
Nice. Good job, Grace. I'm very proud of you. As we come to the end of this episode of Living Stones, we hope that you've been encouraged and blessed by how the Lord worked in Grace's life and in so many others that have shared their grace story with us thus far. If you found value in today's episode, we encourage you to share it with others. Remember that you are not alone in this journey. We are members of God's household, united by our shared faith in the Lord and the desire to grow together. So until next time, may God's grace and peace be with you all. Thank you for being a part of Living Stones.